So now I think we're ready to begin with opening statements. So Supervisor Wiener.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and Supervisor Kim, welcome to this year's dates. I'm Scott Wiener, and I'm proud to be running to represent our city and our region in the California State Senate. I'm running because now more than ever, we need strong and effective leadership to confront the very real challenges that we face as a community around housing affordability, around transportation, around access to affordable health care and quality public education, and around the existential threat called climate change. I have a long track record delivering on each of these issues, and I will deliver for our city and our region in Sacramento. Just a little bit about my background. My family came to this country fleeing persecution in Eastern Europe and Russia. My mother was a public school teacher, and my dad started a small business because he has a disability. And back then, you could get fired from your job for being disabled, and he did. And so he went out on his own. My parents taught me early on some very core values that apply in politics. To be straightforward and honest, to work hard, to treat everyone with respect. And they taught me early on that government exists to make sure that everyone has a fair shot at succeeding. I attended K-12 public school, went to college, and came out of law school with enormous student debt. I came to San Francisco to the Castro 19 years ago as a young gay man, and ever since then, I have poured my life into this community. I am one of the core group of people who built the LGBT Community Center from a hole in the ground. I was the president of my neighborhood association, and when gay men were getting raped in the Castro, I co-founded a community safety organization. I have worked to build our progressive Democratic Party and had the honor of serving as the chair of the San Francisco Democratic Party. And this work and this experience really informs the passion that I bring to the issues that matter to our city. I have been the leading advocate in City Hall for improved investment in public transportation, not just Muni, but BART and Caltrain and our entire transportation system. And I have not hesitated to fight, whether it's with my colleagues or with the mayor or anyone else, to make sure that we are supporting transit. I have fought hard to make sure that we address our housing affordability crisis, not just with words, not just with slogans, but with real solutions. And I have worked to dispel the myth that you can improve housing affordability without actually creating housing. I have worked to support affordable housing, to support rent control, and to expand rent control by allowing for new rent control units. I have fought for access to health care, whether it's making sure that we fund HIV programs, making sure that low-income children in the Bayview have access to dental care, and standing up against the soda industry to say stop giving our kids diabetes. I have worked hard to support our public schools, and I have worked hard to support working families, including yesterday when the Board of Supervisors unanimously passed my legislation to make San Francisco the very first place in the U.S. to guarantee fully paid parental leave. You know, I will admit, at times I take controversial decisions. I'm not one to be shy and to sit back. But you know what? You can agree with me or disagree with me on this issue or that issue. But I think even my harshest opponent would acknowledge that I work my rear end off for this community, that I am straightforward and you will never have to guess where I am on an issue, and that I take the ball and I carry it across the finish line and I get the job done, and I will do that for our city and our region in Sacramento. I am honored to have the endorsement of our great state senator, Mark Leno, and I'm so honored to have his support. I am honored to be the officially endorsed candidate of the Democratic Party and the California League of Conservation Voters. I'm honored to have the endorsements of our great U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein, of our future U.S. Senator Kamala Harris, of Gavin Newsom, of Dennis Herrera, of London Breed, of so many great leaders in our city. and I would be honored to have your support as well. Thank you.
So first of all, thank you all for attending the very first debate, and I do want to recognize our amazing organizations, Toklas and Harvey LGBT Democratic Club, and of course our Bay Area reporter for co-hosting tonight's debate and help provide a forum so we can discuss the issues facing the district that we are working to represent. And I also want to acknowledge Cynthia, Marga, and Donna for moderating today's event. I had a slight advantage before we got here because I saw many of them in the ladies' room. I already paid them off, and all my questions are going to get asked. I love that the first debate of this race is happening here in this community, co-sponsored by our most prominent LGBT institutions here in San Francisco. Beyond representing some of the best of what San Francisco is, the LGBT community has long stood for the very fights, activism, and history that represents the very best of San Francisco. While we are not a perfect city, San Francisco has long been considered the refuge, the city of refuge, love, and acceptance. It is a city that you could come to that tolerates, not just tolerates, but actually welcomes and even adores the differences. People who were kicked out of their homes, out of their communities, taunted, perhaps even harassed, immigrants from around the world that have come to San Francisco to create a new life for themselves and their children. And also those who are considered strange, weird, and just not the norm. San Francisco, true or false, was and is considered a place of refuge, of community, and of love. Harvey Milk said that, quote, all young people, regardless of sexual orientation or identity, deserves a safe and supportive environment in which to achieve their full potential. Tens of thousands of people come to San Francisco to find that safe space, often with little or support or money, landing on friends' couches, finding sublets and roommates, even ending up in our shelter system and our single-room occupancy hotels. But we all know that this is becoming harder and harder to do, that many people can no longer afford to come to the city to find a place of refuge and tolerance. And the widening income gap that we're seeing here in the region and in San Francisco is no longer the divide between the rich and the poor. It is now the divide of the ultra and extraordinarily wealthy and everyone else. In fact, the only individuals that can even consider moving to San Francisco in order to find this place of refuge are increasingly becoming the extraordinarily wealthy. And even middle-class workers that make very good wages, our nurses, our social workers, our teachers, even our entry-level tech workers and office workers are finding that this is increasingly a city that they cannot afford to live in. This is not right. This is not the San Francisco that we love. And we need to continue to be a city and a region that with room for people of all walks of life. The fastest growing demographic in our homeless count today are working mothers and children. A third of our homeless count are children between the ages of 5 and 17, and that's just because we can't count children 0 to 5. We're no longer a city that accepts the nurses, the artists, the nurses, and the immigrant families. And this is an incredible ethical dilemma for a city, that we are a city that people who work full-time cannot afford to live in. I have been a demonstrated leader in building not just housing, but also affordable housing in San Francisco. I'm proud of the fact that 54% of all of San Francisco's affordable housing is being built in the district that I represent. I've been someone on the board that has stood up to developers and said, as we confer value to the land that you own and that you are building on, you need to share that value and that profit with the community by building more affordable housing, by contributing to transportation, and by building open space and neighborhood infrastructure. Where we were able to get developments that were able to achieve 15% or 20% affordable housing, we now have developments that have committed to 40% affordable and middle-income housing on site in our neighborhoods, directly benefiting everyone from households that were formerly homeless to, again, those nurses, teachers, and entry-level office workers. I'm also proud to have authored the strongest and most progressive tenant protection ordinance in the country. We are increasingly seeing evictions occurring in San Francisco, the vast majority of whom are seniors, individuals with disabilities, and immigrants who speak English as a second language. And I will continue to fight for these values and be a compassionate policymaker that represents the values of San Francisco at the state level. Thank you.